Welcome back. Part of our lucky mission or happy mission here, as Jim Harbaugh would call it, to bring you some Sunday night entertainment. This is Doug Skene with me. I'm Chris Balas, Michigan's five-time Big Ten champion. Had to go through Ohio State for every one of those.
Mm,
Skene. Doug,
mhm.
happy to be wrong. Skene. For those who don't know, Doug was the big loser, the biggest loser. Only one of us picked Michigan to win. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Thank you for all of the nice tweets on that, by the way, about how the so-called experts picked Michigan to lose.
Mm.
Yeah, brilliant people. Yeah, everybody was picking Michigan to win that one. So, but hey, let's first talk. First things first, Skene. After a 45-23 beatdown of the Buckeyes by Michigan on Saturday, and Skene, tell me, what was your what's the feeling? Just tell it for everybody who has never been able to experience it. And I was on the field there at the end of the game, and it was fantastic. But tell me, Skene, what is the feeling? What makes it different to win down there in Columbus compared to winning elsewhere?
So, for anybody that was there, you felt the energy in the stadium. For those of us watching it on television, you could see the entire stadium. It looked like there was like 10 Michigan fans in the entire thing. Everybody's wearing red. It's an electric atmosphere when you go into Ohio Stadium, all the way into town, all the way around the state of Ohio. Everything's focused on this day and this moment and these 4 hours of time. And I was telling my kids and the friends that were over to watch the game with me, I said, there are very few places on earth that have that kind of vibe in the building. And as a Michigan football player on this day in that building, there are very few places, maybe not anywhere, that are more gratifying to win in than that place. Yes, it's
Yeah.
exciting to win football games at home, but it is and Joe, yeah, it feels awesome to be wrong on this one, but it can only be exemplified for those watching the game. And Ballas, I'm sure you saw it in the stadium. The faces on the Buckeye fans when you're walking off that field, and someone needs to keep an eye on these people for the next few weeks down there because the whole state is like melting into center earth. It's
Yeah.
just it is not something that Buckeye fans do well with, and it just goes to show how much they care about their team, which they obviously do. They take it, I think, a few steps more serious down there than we do up here at Michigan and a lot of places around the country. It also exemplifies for this team how hard it is to go in and win in Ohio Stadium. And this team did it with a big fat exclamation point, which was awesome to watch. We'll talk about all that stuff. But the energy and the tension around going into that place and winning on their last game of the year. It's been so long, Bows. It's like last year all over again. These are new firsts for so many Michigan fans. But for us guys that have been around a while, that have been there and done that, it's like it's been so long since we've seen this. I've had a smile on my face since the game ended, and
Yeah.
I can't stop giggling.
Yeah, and I wrote a column that, for our kids, we've told our kids about this for so long. Some of our kids, yours and mine, don't understand that, this used to
No.
be something that they would do with regularity. And this is what made Michigan football so great, was that you would go in there and shut up a stadium like that. And it was hostile. And I'll tell you what, as hostile as any that I've heard, because they understood what was at stake in this scheme. We're talking about taking back the rivalry and making it a real rivalry again, because they played that fluke card all year long, right? Oh,
Mhm.
my little boy had the flu, and my there were snowflakes. Oh my God, and everything else. And guess what? You got your ass kicked for a
Well,
second year
or
in a
you,
row.
you know, you had Hutch and Ajabo last year,
Right,
and
right.
and yeah, that right there, that image
Hmm.
right there, and I can tell you, Ballas, if you're a Michigan fan, you're walking off, or football player, you're walking off the field, you kind of glance up in the stands, you see there's still hundreds and hundreds of fans just sitting in their seat in stunned
Hmm.
shock.
They are.
And we've been on the receiving end of so many of those losses in the last 10 years with against Ohio State, some of them just absolute butt kickings. And last year was the change, but think about all, we know how this feels to be that guy. We know how that, well, maybe that guy, not that guy,
That guy.
but we know how that feels, and it's so awesome to see this group of Michigan players and this generation of Michigan players recapture what was done with regularity all those years ago. So now it's a new
Yeah.
standard, it's a new day, and for us Michigan fans, I think this year is a little bit different and a little bit more special than others. And here's the one thing I hope: let's act like we've been here before, people, because this is
Well,
what the expectation is at Michigan: is to win.
much. Here's the funny part: we're driving, right? We're driving down High Street, and these people are like 24 bush lights in already, or whatever it is, and you've got the sheets on the frat houses, and
Mhm,
the misspellings and the X's over the M's, and it was classic. And I'm telling these guys, these young guys that were with me, who were born like in 1998 or something like that. Okay, now you're gonna feel it. This is something different. So
mhm,
bed sheets, and they've got Michigan and all the expletives and everything else, and there's an M that they miss with the X, and even the signs on the street, like for medical institutions and stuff, they have the M's blocked out.
mhm.
So you get in there, and the things that are being yelled on the sidelines, and see, tell me if this is accurate as to when you played, but these guys, Doug Carson was down there on the sidelines in the past, and he said he'd never heard anything like it. It's
Mhm.
that much different.
Balas, I'm trying to characterize what it's like to go into that stadium wearing the
Yeah.
maize and blue. Ohio State fans have a reputation for being a little extra hostile, a little extra vocal, a little extra, you know, foaming at the mouth about their football program. And there's a lot of things that are and somewhat admirable about that because they love that football team so much. Um, but there is a limit, and and when you start saying things about people personally and what you wish their parents and their grandparents would all die, and you just want people
Mhm.
to die a slow, arduous death, and just terrible things, um, there seems like there's no limit to what some, and I'm not saying this about all Buckeye fans, not even close. And I've said, you and I've said this before. I think every fan base has a certain percentage of jackasses that make it look bad for a lot of people, but it just feels like Ohio State has maybe that many, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
got a
probably
little
like
bit more.
80%.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know about that much, but the Buckeye
Mhm.
fans that I hang around, they're pretty good people, and we have a lot of fun with this thing. But I've told you this story. It's been a while. So in a previous career stop for me, I've been selling and I've been working in the Cleveland area for gosh, the last 20 years, and had a lot of great conversations with a lot of college football fans down there. We talk about the Michigan Ohio State thing, and it's a lot of fun to talk about. And I was in one store. This was probably 10 years ago, maybe more. And I was talking to a group of guys. It was like 6 or 7 hanging around the room, and we were just talking about games and coaches and how cool it was to play in those games. And my favorite Buckeye players that I can say over the years, Chris Spielman is one of my favorites,
Mhm.
right? Um, and we had a good conversation. There was one guy sitting in the corner of the room that day, and he was just sitting there staring at me. He wasn't saying a word. He was just staring at me like, just give me the eyeball. And I looked at him. I was like, "Oh, how you doing today?" And he stood up in his chair and he goes, F you all the way to hell, man. Screw you." And I was like, I looked
Wow.
at these were all of his friends. I looked at his
Yeah.
friends. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? He's
Right.
like, yeah, relax. He takes it a little too serious.
You
Well, it
think?
was, I was like, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, and I looked at him like, dude, here's a little news flash for you. You're not playing in any of those games, and I'm not anymore either. So we
Mhm.
can just talk about this, and it's not the end of the world. But this guy
Wow.
was legitimately pissed off that I was even there, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is what I'm talking about. There's some people that just take it a little too serious, and
Mm.
they were in the stadium on Saturday, and those are the kind of people that are saying the kind of things that Karsh and yourself heard that they're hurling at these guys. And it's like, hey, we're just playing a football game here, people. And I know it means a lot to a lot of people, but let's ease off on the death threats and the terrible things you wish my family would go through.
That's unreal. Yeah, but really not all that surprising. Shane Johnson, we're gonna get to the super chats here real quick. Shane, 2 years in a row now, we mauled them to quit in the fourth, and guess what, Skeen? They did again
Yeah,
quit in the fourth quarter.
they did.
There were guys, you know what? They weren't quitting when they were running after Donovan Edwards and chasing him.
Yeah.
You know what? They were running their 75-yard dashes or whatever to no avail. It was a beautiful sight. I got to tell you, on the 85-yarder, I mean, you just could feel
Yeah.
the just everything coming out of that stadium. And in the third quarter, you know what? You could feel the tension too. As Joel
Oh.
Klatt said when I watched the replay, he said you can just feel it in the stadium, and he was absolutely right. So, but Shane, you're right. Let's get to another one of Shane's here. I know he had a couple of them, and Shane, thank you so much, man. Lots of legends made. Here
Mhm.
are two for me: Cornelius Johnson, who has been maligned here. We've talked about the receivers not getting open and not catching balls. Guess what? They challenged them in
Mm.
Don Brown fashion, and we'll talk about that, right? With their zero blitzes and their man
Mhm.
coverage to make plays. They did not give them any respect. And guess what? Cornelius Johnson goes out there, makes a play. On the first one, uh, here's a lesson to all the youngsters, and I'm going to take a note from Skene here. Their linebacker or whoever it was that was coming to the play after Cornelius Johnson slips the tackle was loafing.
Mm,
And if you're hustling to the ball in true Aiden Hutchinson fashion, for example, when
mhm,
that cornerback grabs Cornelius Johnson just to slow him down a little bit there, you're
mhm,
there to clean it up. Guess what?
mhm.
He was loafing. Boom, Cornelius Johnson's gone. Those are the differences in games between winning and losing these games. That's number one. Number two, just the little move that Cornelius made to get open on the wide open pass. And
Beautiful.
credit
It's
to
beautiful.
JJ McCarthy, Shane, because you know what? As Jim Harbaugh told him after the Rutgers game, when a guy is that wide open, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to lead him. Just put it on him, and he did that 2 or 3 times. With
Put
the
it
one,
out there.
yeah, put it out there. They got it. Unbelievable plays by not just him, but the other receivers at times as well. And that young tight end, Colston Loveland, man, that kid's going to
Mm.
be an absolute stud, huh? Tony McGee type, really
Yeah.
a Tony McGee type with the way he catches the ball.
Yeah, I like him a lot. And obviously, that was a big play, big catch. But those routes, that one route by Johnson there, where he
Yeah,
spun that deep end, as soon as that kid turned his hips,
bye.
turned his back on Cornelius, he just did the head fake. And Balas, we talked about this a little bit, right? I'm no receiving expert, but the little tiny things that make receivers get open is the planting of the foot and the head fake one way, and using your body to influence a defender to get them to make a move, and you go opposite. And it was textbook, right? I mean,
Yeah,
and again, Ohio State sat back there and thought, "You guys are no good. We're going to play press man, put everybody in the box. We don't even need safeties because you
yep,
guys suck so bad."
yep.
And so that ended up absolutely dusting them throughout the game. But you're right, Ballas. Klatt talked about it on the television broadcast. I could see it. You know, I'm a big proponent of looking in the eyeballs, and they zero
Yes,
in on those guys. um, my oh my, did that football team tighten up as that game went on, and all the smile and the laughing and and the high fives and all that suddenly turned into, oh crap, this
yeah.
is this is actually happening.
We're getting punched in the mouth. And Shane Johnson, just 4 12 win seasons since 1897, half of them coming in back to back years. Something else I wrote today is you need to be proactive now and make sure it continues for the next 10 years with Jim Harbaugh. He had his rough patch here. You know what? You cut his pay. Now he's proven himself to be, again, one of the top coaches in the country at any level. You keep those guys there and you do it. You don't react. Okay. Okay. You say, Jim, if you're thinking about the NFL, is there anything possible that we can do to keep you here? I don't give a crap what anybody else says about that. You need to be proactive. So, but Shane, with your 499, so proud of the program and the Wolverine coverage. Thanks, man. It is easy to write, brother, when you are up there. I did have some words with one of the Ohio State statisticians, Skene. I don't know. It
You
got
can almost get in a fist fight in the press box, Ballas. Come
you
on,
could talk
really?
to John. No, you could talk to John Borton about it. I wouldn't go that far, but this guy would not shut the hell up. And finally, somebody had to tell him because we're all sitting there looking at each other, the Michigan beat writers, and it's like every call, oh, that's effing BS and this and that. I'm like, dude, this is not fanboy central up here. Okay,
I
some
was
of
going
us
to
are
say
trying.
that I thought there was a
No,
rule. So no
there is a
cheering in the
rule.
press box.
Exactly. And this guy's doing
Yeah.
stats. And I'm like, I said, this is not fanboy central. And I said, some of us are actually trying to work. And I'm like, well, work. And and he said, so work then. And I'm like, you're damn right, and didn't hear another peep out of him. So I did my part. But Shane, Chris, my boy bailed on me to go to, I'm sure you're stunned by that, right? That I had words with some guy
Yeah,
up there.
it's a
But
surprise.
yeah, so my boy bailed on me to go to the game. How electric was the Lions Den? Your take on big difference of O-line success from first to second half. Let me say this, Shane. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like this rivalry, and that's why 17 million people watched it. The most since I think in 11 years, they said, and by far the most that Fox has ever had broadcasting the game. And in that moment, they took it and proved that Michigan is Michigan again. But I'll say this: I've got my hands on some of the L22 film, Skene. I'm going to have you watch it with me, and we're going to probably do a breakdown of it because in that first half, it was dicey. Those
Hmm.
linemen were not doing a good enough job protecting JJ
Hmm.
McCarthy. And
Hmm.
you know what? They brought that double A gap blitz. And that was the play, though, that really changed the game. They got a little too aggressive, more aggressive than I thought they had to, frankly, on that play. But it reminded me of those old Michigan State blitzes. Remember when they'd come right
Hmm.
up there? Michigan didn't handle well. JJ McCarthy took a shot, delivered the ball to Cornelius Johnson, who did the rest. But to me, they used their aggressiveness against them, and they got better as the game went on.
Well, when a defense is darting gaps like that, which you kind of expected because Illinois did it with success, Ohio State was doing the same things, and they were giving us all kinds of problems in the first half. There, we rushed for basically nothing in the first half because they were hitting gaps and we weren't blocking clean. We were getting pushed back. Barnhart had a rough first half, Ballas. He
Yes,
was
he
put
did.
on roller skates by number 44 out there a few times, and he settled down in that second half and got a little bit better there. Things were a little crazy there. We weren't getting square and getting to our down lineman to second level combo blocks as effectively as we needed to be, and so it wasn't going well. But boy, did they settle down! And then in that second half, I think that Michigan offensive line, the persistence and the consistent effort finally paid dividends there. It combinated with Ohio State's darting in those gaps, and on one of the Donovan Edwards big runs, you see Eichenberg. He takes a guess at a gap, then he picked the wrong gap, or
Yes,
he
he
just
did.
got caught up in the wash. And boy, Zinter and Olawatimi had a beautiful combo down lineman to front side linebacker, and boom, gone. See ya. Tail lights all the way to the end zone for Edwards there, and it just finally worked. There was some things in the first half that had my eyebrows being raised.
Hmm.
There was some tight ends in there that were being asked to do some kick blocks, crossing formation kick blocks on some defensive ends, and it was not going well. And yet Michigan kept trying and trying this stuff. I'm like, listen, if you're going to try this stuff, that's fine, but you've got to put a guy in there who's willing to go do it.
Yeah,
And we
and I
had some
thought,
dudes in there that were struggling at times to go make a base block, and it just felt like we were a little tentative, I think, in that first half, trying to feel our way around a little bit. And then in the second half, it's like that football team came out and said, "You know what? Screw it. We got nothing to lose here. No one's expecting us to win except us. Let's just get this done." And all of a sudden, boom, here we go.
yeah, and Shane, you talk about legends. Donovan Edwards to me secured his place in Michigan lore in the game, playing with a broken hand, and it looked to
Yeah,
me like we knew that Blake Corum wasn't going to be able to go much. Okay,
yeah,
we'd heard we know that what's going on there. It would be surprising, it'd be stunning, frankly, if he played in the Big Ten championship game. However, folks, we do believe he could be back for the playoff game, which looks more and more likely at this point, obviously. So, but Donovan Edwards, it looked to me like they wanted to use him as a decoy early, and let's see if what we can get out of CJ Stokes, and maybe he can carry this thing. It became clear that the moment was too big for him, and there's no shame in that. CJ, he's going to be okay. You see these guys progress and from year to year, but Donovan Edwards carrying that ball in his left hand.
mm,
Okay, and at times it's got a man. You got that big club on your right hand. I've never seen a running back play with a club like that.
not
And
a
so
running
he's
back.
carrying.
No,
No, he's carrying it in his left hand. He's protecting the ball to not only not give up the ball, but to do what he did there in the second half and carrying that team after 10 rushing yards in the first half is legendary. It reminded me of Tyrone Wheatley in the
mm,
Rose Bowl skiing when he hits
yep,
that hole
it's
and he
gone.
gets acceleration. That was a beautiful thing to watch. But that
Well,
kid
yeah.
is something else, isn't he?
Well, it's think about the toughness there. The toughness, I think we'd all kind of chatted about it, but everybody knew that he had a hand injury coming into this game. It was one of the worst kept secrets in Ann Arbor.
Hmm.
And so when your thumb, if you watch his hand, his thumb was all just taped up with this big massive deal here, and his thumb was splinted and it was straight. You know, uh, if you've ever sprained your thumb or jammed your fingers, Balas, that hurts a little bit, right?
Hmm.
So his hand is obviously hurt, and they had to protect that thing. But to play that position and go do the things he did, you do not see that mostly out of running backs in other positions on the field outside of offensive linemen. You've seen some defensive guys do it. Some defensive backs have done it, linebackers over the years that play with those kind of injuries. So the toughness box for Edwards, check that thing off all day long, and the guts to want to go out and play in this game. I'm sure he probably had people saying, "Don't do it, don't do it. You might risk this, you might risk
Hmm.
that." But that kid was out there grinding for Michigan, and you're absolutely right. He will always be remembered, and he's still a young guy, right? He's still
Yeah.
developing. So, boy, what an exciting thing. But you're right. When he hit those two runs later in the game, it did remind me a lot of a Wheatley. 2 or 3 steps, he's at top speed, and you're probably
Boom.
not catching that dude. Gone.
Yeah.
So that was the demoralizing stuff about this, and how we were off the couch. I was so excited, I just couldn't believe it. I just
Yeah.
couldn't believe that Michigan was manhandling them again in the second half. And JJ's run there, going into the north end of the horseshoe there, his tough run where he just put his
Mm.
head down, and he had that opening run early in the third quarter where he's putting his shoulders down. You and I talked about this early this year in the year in one of these podcasts. What effect does that have on an offensive lineman when you see your quarterback leaning forward, taking on hits and driving guys down? I'm telling you, man, it is the special sauce that makes an offensive lineman try even harder on the next play and the rest of those series. So it's just awesome to see.
Yeah. We're going to chef, just like Harbaugh said post game, as players play like heroes. You too. Thanks, brother. You can extend your service, Doug. Please keep on picking against Michigan, and we'll win it all. You took so much crap on the message board. We all did. Halfway through this game, right? I picked Michigan to lose 30-27, and halfway through the game, some guy posts on the message board, Balas, you piece of whatever. You didn't give them a chance. And I'm like, first of all, the game's not over. Second of all, I picked them to lose 30-27,
Yeah.
knowing that Blake Corum probably wasn't going to play and Donovan Edwards might be limited. So
I think
thank you, fear the beard.
yeah.
More
You
words that
know,
I never thought I'd ever say.
listen, for us Michigan fans on the message board and everything else, come on. We're all Michigan fans
Right.
here. We're just
Yeah.
trying to be objective. I'm trying to be real. We're
Right.
going in there with about 4 or 5 starters. Some of our best players are not playing against an unbelievably talented Ohio State team.
Yep.
I think the reasoning was fairly accurate here.
Right.
Now, what I couldn't measure and no one can is the guts of the
Hmm.
guys inside the uniform, and that's the part that I got dramatically wrong, and that's the part I'm so happy to be
Yeah.
wrong. And once again, Ballas, there was
Yep.
a little bit of a tear in the eye on Saturday
Yep.
afternoon because it was just brought back so many
Yeah.
memories. And I can't express how happy I am for this generation of Wolverines, these young players who every day go into Schembeckler Hall and they want to measure up to those teams on the wall going back 100 years to all the black and white photos. Every guy that goes in that building wants their picture on that wall.
Yeah.
They want to be part of the history, and this team did it.
Yeah, and Chef, I can promise you that Skeen is happy to be wrong. He's happy that he didn't win the microwave muffin maker that he would have won if he'd won staff picks, which were won by Anthony Broom, who was the only one of us to pick Ohio State or to pick Michigan to beat Ohio State. We all picked the Buckeyes. As William says, this one even feels better because all the people who picked against us, even our own, it is
Yeah.
not our job, however, William, and thank you so much for the $5, brother. I can't tell you that to pick with our hearts. Sometimes, you know what, we still, even though we run a team site, we want to try to be as objective as possible.
Yeah.
And Mike Morris, how much did Mike Morris play in this game? Very little,
Oh,
right?
very little. Yeah.
Very little. You had guys out there that were absolutely banged up trying to play but couldn't and went anyway. Luke Schoonmaker barely played, and you get a kid in there who struggled. Colson Loveland struggled blocking in the first half. He wasn't the only tight end. Max
Hmm.
Bredesen struggled at times too. These
Hmm.
guys need to be better. I do want to give props though to Joel Honigford because on the 45-yard touchdown pass to Colston Loveland, you've got two guys coming on just balls out on the edge. And Barnhart, like you said, who had struggled in the first half, gets just enough of that kid who's a damn
Hmm.
good football player. And
Hmm.
and Honigford gets just enough to push him to the outside to give McCarthy time to step up in the pocket. You see the instincts kick in, right? You know what? The quarterback instincts, and he puts that ball right on the money. So good on those guys on that play.
Honeyford also bows. I think there was one of their plays going into the south end zone. There was a sky cam shot. Honingford absolutely got into 44, got
Hmm.
his eyeballs down in his throat, got his
Yes.
hands inside, drove his hips, and put that dude on his back. And
Yes.
I dare say did the old belt buckle rub in his face. It was awesome. It was an awesome block.
So, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it was
It was
beautiful.
it was a
It means
beautiful
more.
block.
It
Yeah.
means a lot to these guys in Ohio. And watching Rod Moore run off the field, this is my house in so many words. I can't tell you exactly what he said. Those guys, like Jim Harbaugh said, we're not going to flinch. They did not flinch. They took that place over. I can only imagine how much better it feels for an Ohio kid like Rod Moore, who, by the way, is already one of the better safeties that I've seen in the last 30 years at Michigan. That is not an embellishment. I'm being honest here. Tech Matt, $5. Thanks, Tech Matt. I've watched every year from 2004 to 2019, except 2014. Haven't watched the last 2 years. I found my mission. Yes, you have. You go in your mom's basement and you just sit there and eat the meatloaf and don't do anything until that game is over. You know what? My dad doesn't even watch live anymore. I'm going to give him some shit for this because
Superstitions are awesome.
exactly. Because
So
when he doesn't,
If
right,
Tech Matt doesn't watch the game and I keep picking against him, Michigan will be
exactly.
undefeated forever.
So we've got the formula here. So, but you know what, buddy? You have nothing to do with it. I can promise you that. So if you want to watch, then go ahead and watch. Howard Richards, $5. Why wouldn't Knowles make defensive adjustments in the second half? Pass game ability should have been obvious by then. I think he did a little bit, but that kind of opened up the run a little bit too. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look at some of the run fits, you know what? When they started going to Donovan Edwards, then the run game opened up a little bit when they
Mm-hmm.
loosened him up. You know, it's a dumb cliche, and we hear it on talk radio all the time. Use the pass to open up the run, but in this instance, it worked, and they had no idea what was coming, and they started using JJ McCarthy to run the ball a little bit more. You talked about the touchdown run. You want to talk about exactly the meatloaf. But you want to talk about balls. Okay, first of all, taking that kid head on, you could hear it, right? You could
Mhm.
hear the helmets colliding, the pads colliding. JJ McCarthy was not going to be denied another legendary performance. I don't care about the 12 for 24. Okay, I don't care about anything else. You
No, not the
protected the ball.
stat. Listen,
None
if
of
you're a
that crap.
quarterback that goes into Ohio Stadium and wins, it doesn't matter what
and
your
and
stats
and
are.
hits your big plays. Okay, he was a little off early, but he wasn't getting much help from his line. But here's another thing: he had a run where he kept, and he's carrying defenders with him
Mhm,
on a keeper, where he gets an extra 5-7 yards, and he gets up and he looks at him like, you know what? Get off me.
mhm.
And it was just fantastic. It was Shep. That JJ run in the first half was epic
It
too.
was a key play, and
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
also a play that sticks out in my mind. Obviously, the dislodged ball by Sanders was unbelievable.
Two of them.
That's
Yeah, but
just
the
a
one in the end zone, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
unbelievable play. But on the fourth down play, I think it was fourth down, Balas, Junior Colson off the offensive left end. Ohio State's tight end number eight's coming in motion, comes across the motion from right to left, tries to block Colson out there. He shucks that block and goes and makes that tackle for no
Yeah.
loss, maybe even a loss of a yard or no gain, maybe a loss of a yard.
Yeah.
Unbelievable play. That defense was foaming at the mouth, man. I sent you that text message mid game. Like, this offense owes this defense now. They need to
Yes.
perform now because the defense was hanging in and hanging in. And it felt like Ohio State was sprinting between the
Hmm.
20s, just
Hmm.
up and down, and no problem between the 20s. And then things tightened up.
Yes.
And then
Yep.
it got a little bit juicy and a little bit compact down in there, and that defense stiffened. And all my buddies are going, dang, this defense is playing, man. And
Yeah.
we weren't really getting to Stroud. We weren't
No.
knocking him down. That I talked about that as an indicator. We got to get to him in the first quarter and get some hits on him. We didn't do any of that. He was
No.
throwing the football. And then of course Harrison was going to make his plays. And that
Mhm.
guy's unbelievably good player as well.
Yeah.
And just to keep him just to limited to what he did, which was still a good day,
Great
obviously
day.
great
Yeah.
day for that guy. What a superstar he is.
Yeah.
But the defense just was unbelievable, and of course the adjustments for the defensive staff off the charts good. And boy, hats off to this
Yeah.
coaching staff.
We'll talk about that again in a second, but I want to get to Derek. Derek, you're giving these $50, man. You're killing me. I'm going to be buying you tons of beers with that money, and I'm going to be paying for a good meal for you, man. When you come back, Yost Ghost, we had beers a few weeks back. This is the best part about the Wolverine.com, folks. The people on the fort and our message board is a community of family. Derek's one of the best, man. I told you so. I told both of you last week they were not mentally strong and they would break. Shame on you, Skene. Ha ha ha.
God,
Go
man.
blue. Exactly. There's a rough crowd, man. I'll tell you what, Derek, if I didn't know you so well and you were giving us $50, you know what? I might tell you off here. Not really. But you know what? Here's the thing, man. Uh, you can't be, again, it was everybody in the Michigan media. You know what? Because there was so much at stake, and you have to be, I wrote this in the pregame, you almost have to be 10 points better than them to win by one down there for a variety of
Mhm,
reasons. But I do want to credit the officiating crew. There were a couple plays. Mike Sainristil, you talked about the one that he broke up in the end zone. There was another one where he makes a diving break up there in the end zone where the crowd is like screaming for, and I'm like, no, that's just a good defensive play. Rod
mhm,
Moore breaks on the ball and he's playing the ball. There's contact when the ball
mhm,
gets there, but it was a great no call because
mhm,
he's there and he's got every
mhm,
right to that ball, just like the other guy, like the receiver does. And then the play in the end zone where the ball's high, Ronnie Bell, it gets
mhm,
interfered with. He gets his hand on the ball.
mhm.
There's going to be that crowd screaming, and those officials could say, but you know what? They made the right calls there, and I give them credit for that.
Ballas, in years past, Ohio
Mm-hmm.
State always was getting those calls,
100%.
and this crew did not. And they even went back and fixed the play clock when they had
Right.
the inconsistent first down marking. They
Yep.
didn't give us a fresh play clock, and Harbaugh called the timeout. We got that timeout
Yes.
back.
Yes, they
And
did.
I was like, okay, it's a new day. We're not getting jammed by the officials down here either. And I know I'm going to have some Buckeye friends. Oh, Phil, pass interference, this and that. I think, fellas, maybe you got a little bit used to that home cooking over the years down
Yes,
there
they
with some of
did.
that officiating crews, and that wasn't the case yesterday. That was a game they let them play. And what was interesting, though, from an Ohio State perspective, I told you this 2 years ago when Ryan Day took over. I thought that he had cleaned out the dumbassery, if you will, of the Ohio State football team and the dumb penalties. And all of a sudden, those came back with a vengeance
Yeah.
because Ohio State played some stupid football and some stupid plays, giving us all kinds of free yards. And I thought, hey, wow,
Yeah.
maybe Coach Day doesn't have this as dialed in as I thought he did, because I thought that was gone And after his
There it
first
is.
couple of years in Columbus, I was like, "Whoa, yeah, those
Yep.
couple of those penalties were staggering, bad
Yeah.
ones."
9 for 91. The headbutt,
The
beautiful.
headbutt, the headbutt was just
First and 35. Yeah.
yeah,
It's like
and
I have
and to Coach Day's credit, he yanked that kid. I don't think he saw the field again. He
he
threw him
shouldn't
in
have.
yeah, he
Yeah.
threw him out. That
But you
was
know what it
just
reminded
stupid.
me of? It reminded me of David Bosch, and that's when it was starting to creep in here that holy crap, you know what? We're in a dogfight here. It reminded me of David Boston going after Charles Woodson and smacking him upside the head. And it's like when you
Mhm.
start resorting to that kind of stuff and it's getting under your skin like that,
You know, I'm
then
winning. I'm
it
winning.
is in your head, exactly, and you're smiling at him skiing, and you guys are smiling as the tears start to cry. You know, you
Ah,
make these guys
dude.
cry. Yeah.
That was our goal was to get somebody to
Yes.
lose their composure and take a
Yeah.
swing at us and get a free 15.
Yeah.
Well, we would celebrate on all of
Yeah.
those. So yeah,
Yeah, and
more of
usually
that.
it's Michigan State, but this year it was Ohio State, and guess what? It made a difference. There's no question about it. So it was fun to watch. So I wanted to talk about that defense because this is an underrated aspect of this game. It was 10-3 for a while, right? The Michigan offense is stagnating. The first drive, even to get that field goal, it was labored that whole drive,
Mhm.
and you're thinking if this is indicative of how this day is going to go, they're in trouble. But
Yeah.
that defense held them two or three times when it was 10-3, and to me that was the difference in the game. If
Yep.
they go down and score on any of those plays, then
Yep.
you're looking at a 17-3 deficit, and it's a completely different ball game. So
Totally
credit to
different
them.
game.
Jesse Minner, you know what? Do whatever you can to keep him. He needs stability. It's the pro style defense, and we were talking about Jim Knowles and Ohio State's defensive coordinator. Was similar to Dr. Blitz there and Don Brown, where okay, you know what? You're doing for 90% or 80% of the plays, things are going extremely well. It's those five plays that change a ball game that did that against for Don Brown against Ohio State at times. He did great things here, and I am not discounting what he accomplished here. But those when those five plays are five long touchdowns and
Yeah.
35 points, you know what? It doesn't matter that you got 159 yards on the other 50 something 59 plays because you scored 35 points.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, just watching Michigan play at Ohio State brought back, nightmares of crossing routes that were going
right.
for 30 or 40 or more yards than that, and so, Dallas, there's no question that those possessions in that first half, Michigan's defensive performance is what let that kept that thing from getting away from us
Hmm.
because we're not a quick strike team, although we showed it obviously Saturday. But coming into that game, we kind of felt like, well, if we go down by 3 possessions, look out because can do we have enough time to get back?
Hmm.
But obviously, the Michigan offense made changes to their plan to take some more shots and do different things, and then obviously Ohio State's defense played right into that plan, and we had the big success. But a couple of other things schematically that stood out. Obviously, Ohio State's offense was intent on going super, not super speed, but up tempo to limit Michigan's substitutions. There was a couple snaps where Michigan was not ready defensively
Yep.
because Ohio State was going quick.
Yes.
And I thought that was again Michigan's defense adjusted to the tempo of the game to get ready and go, and that was another thing that Michigan's defense in the past, and you go back a couple of years to the Michigan State game when we lost up there and we had half of our defense on the sideline and Michigan State's running back is running for touchdowns. That I thought clearly Ohio State was looking to do some of that, and then
Hmm.
we closed that door,
They
and
did.
so coaching staff and obviously the effort off the charts. And then we did started to harass Stroud a little bit later in that game. We
Hmm.
did start to get some leakers in there as the game went on. So it, an up tempo game. It's hard to describe for folks, but we see it as fans. We go, oh look, Ohio State's going up tempo. Let me tell you how gassing that is for your chest and trying to keep up with the wind in your chest. So great job by Michigan strength and conditioning staff of getting these guys ready to go throughout the course of the season. At no point did you see any of our dudes with their hands on their hips, gasping for air, looking a little tired. And that, I'm telling you, that is a big, big difference late in these big games.
Chaz Michaels, it's awesome. Brings to mind Blades of Glory. Obviously, I know what you're going for, Chad, and I love you, brother. 45 bucks for the points we laid on him. Now you have no excuse for not making up the drinks you owe me for not connecting in Lauderdale last December. You're absolutely right, man. So when we are in Arizona, there is no excuse. You're gonna go over there. I'm gonna use some of that 45. I'm gonna pocket half of it, but I'm gonna use the other half to buy you a couple drinks. Was yesterday as big as the 69 game given the last 20 years? I'm gonna say this, Chad. I thought last year's game was really the one, but this was the one, and it's every bit as big just because now you proved that whole narrative that they used. And it was funny. Brian Hartline, the receivers coach, Chad, they did their little pregame pom-pom waving ceremony in front of all the fans. We're going to go there and kick their ass and take their names, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you know what? They've been talking for 365 years. We've been sitting quietly in the dark waiting for this day. Like somehow last year was a fluke or something
Mhm.
like that. And they've been
Yep.
talking, you know what? And then you had these articles. Skene, I don't know if you read the one in the Columbus Dispatch by the parents. Those poor boys were so sick they could barely stand up last year, man. I was so sad. They're talking about
Mm.
how their boys had their flu. Like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
my
yeah.
baby should have been out there. He should have, mommy should have been feeding him soup and all that. Shut up. You know what? This is big boy football. So you went out there and you got your butt kicked again. And so to me, Chad, yes, because it changes the narrative of the rivalry. And what I wrote in the post game was, hey, um, there's a new sheriff in town, man. The championships go through Ann Arbor. They got to come to Ann Arbor next year, and that's going to be a nice Michigan football team that knows exactly how to beat Ohio State and is going to have a hell of a lot of confidence, Skene. So in that respect, I think absolutely, Chad, no question.
Well, I felt like going into this game and a lot of things I've read and listened to some fans, obviously, but watching Ohio State, I usually start watching Ohio State pretty closely in October leading up
Hmm.
to the football game against us. It almost kind of felt like, hey, this is, last year was last year, yada yada yada. There's no way they can beat us in Columbus. There's just no way.
Hmm.
These a lot of these guys weren't even alive the last time Michigan won in Columbus. That just
Yeah.
is not even possible. So
Yep.
we're not even going to think about it. No matter what we do, we're just going to win the game.
Doug had
Eh,
hair
A
back
little,
then.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then,
Yeah.
a little bit of entitlement, maybe just a little bit of assuming that, hey, we're just going to roll out there because we got the Heisman quarterback and we got Harrison Jr. and we're a bunch of badasses, which in a lot of cases they are. But boy, as that game went on, like Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And Michigan punched him in the mouth, and you could feel it, you could see
Yes.
it. The body language was like, man, this really happening here? What's going
Yeah.
on here?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the television shots of the fans certainly felt that way, and then it's been that way ever since.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know. Part of me, Balas, is like, I went to bed last night and I was like, did that really happen? Did we
Yeah.
just really go down there and destroy them to that
Yes.
level? Yeah,
Yeah.
we did. We absolutely did.
Ryan Day said, no, it was much more competitive than that. It just got away from us a little bit at the end. You know what I would say to that, Ryan Day? I would say that they gave you a gift on that last play where they're about ready to scoop and score to make it 50, to hang
Ooh,
half a
yeah,
honey on you
yeah.
and make it 52 to
Forward
23.
progress stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
A little late on that one, Hutch. But you know what? Yeah, forward progress shot my ass. He flips him over and the ball's
Yep.
laying there. And I think it was, I don't know if it was Taylor Upshaw
It was
who was about
Jenkins
ready.
or Upshaw that had it in
Okay,
his
it would have been
hands.
Upshaw, by the way, who
Yep,
made a great play, and I'm so happy for that kid because you know what? He steps in there and made some plays. You know, the pick on the the nice play by Stroud where he gets out of
yeah,
there. Hey, I want to shout out to Rayshon Benny on that play though, by the way, because on the edge, you talk about rush lanes.
yeah,
Okay, he's holding on there. He could have gone outside, and there could have been a
yep,
lane there for Stroud to get out of there. Instead, he holds his ground, and as Stroud goes to move, there's Benny to take him down on the third down play. He tries
Benny,
to shovel it
yep.
out there, and there's Taylor Upshaw to make the pick.
Benny made a great play, and hey, how about McGregor? McGregor with
Unbelievable.
two big
Yes.
hands up. God,
Yep.
how many times I watched defensive linemen play and they're coming in on a quarterback, and man, what an awesome job he did by getting his hands up. He's a big, tall
Yes.
guy.
Yep.
That is so problematic for quarterbacks. He made two huge plays out there, Ballas. So
Yeah.
again, that rotation there of these guys in the field, they don't feel like, oh, I'm just a backup. They all play, they all contribute to this
Yep.
defense, and that's why this thing works so well.
Yeah, go back to Mr. Jones. I want to give him his 199's worth. Mr. Jones, thank you so much. Me and Mr. Jones.
It was
It
too
was too
sunny.
sunny this year, guys. We were on the field of the pregame, Mr. Jones, and we were like looking and we're like, God, this is a beautiful day for football.
Yeah.
And there was a guy down there and he said, I don't know. Literally, this is the honest to God truth. He said, it could be a little warmer. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. It's 55 degrees or 50 degrees and it's sunshine and it is beautiful. I'm like, man, you guys need to you do need to put a dome over this thing. You do need to put a lid on this toilet seat because you guys are getting soft. So, but he literally said that, and I was out down there with my coworkers and my colleagues, and we're just eating it up, and you could just feel the hatred, man. That's why we go on the field before the game, so you
Oh
can feel
yeah.
that hatred. My buddy says 100 years of hate, you can feel it, you
Yep.
could feel it, and God, there's no place like it. Nathan 86 999, thanks Nathan. Rank this win in the history of the rivalry, and will Edwards' runs be remembered like Desmond Howard and Charles Woodson moments against
Mm,
Ohio State? Thank you, Balas and Skene.
yep.
Nathan, 100%,
Yep.
because this is a 12-0 season, brother. This is number 2 versus number 3. You're an 8-point dog on the road. That line went up when people found out that Corum wasn't going to play, or you know
Mhm.
what? It was, I think, 8.5 at kickoff, if I'm not mistaken. So the Sharps or whatever were all over it. But will Edwards runs? Hell yes, they will. He's playing with one hand, and to get through that line, you know what I love about him, Skene, though, is the patience that he's showing for that to
Mhm.
open up. And when that hole is there, boom, he is gone. But
Mm-mm.
his patience has improved. Mike Hart deserves a heck of a lot of credit
Mhm.
for the way he's coaching these kids. And that's why I have no doubt that CJ Stokes will get better. But Nathan, no doubt about it. JJ McCarthy as well, Cornelius Johnson, and I'm telling you, Rod Moore does not get the credit he deserves. He jumped 2 routes there. That kid is an absolute stud, and I love the fact that he's from Ohio.
Well, it certainly means more for those guys. In Desmond's game and Woodson's game, they didn't have a busted hand. And
Mm-mm.
when they made their big plays, of course, they were probably sore as hell by that time in the football season, as we all
Mm-hmm.
were. But no, I think the Edwards performance in the second half of that football game goes down in the history of the entire rivalry, going both ways. You see the highlights of all the teams over the years, and that will definitely leave a mark for generations to come. It just changes the whole thing, and so it's all plays dividends in the next year. This win here and the performance of Edwards and the rest of the players in this team, this changes the expectation, unlike last year did. This changes the expectation for, I think, Michigan, that it's not just a 1 year deal. It is harder to stay on top than it is to climb the mountain. Michigan has stayed on top to this point. We got one more football game to win here to win this Big Ten title and go on to bigger things. But going into next year, I think that this is going to change the way Michigan's players look at this thing. Ohio State had put all the energy and juice, and they've been working on it 365 days and talking about it and watching the videos and listening to some things that, quite frankly, some Michigan people should not have said after last year's game. And I understand they had all the juice. I still think they had all the juice. All the emotion was on their side coming into
Mm-hmm.
this game, but it didn't matter.
No.
Michigan punched them right in the mouth, and it didn't matter.
No, it didn't matter. And Nathan, I want some of you guys in comments. I'm not looking at the comments, but I want some of you to tell me how many times you've watched those Donovan Edwards plays, because it is hard not to watch this kid. And in fact, somebody on our message board even put it in from the one of those Spanish channels, and you hear the guy, the excitement. You don't have a clue what he's saying unless you were a really good Spanish student in high school or you speak Spanish, but you can hear the excitement in his voice. And he gets to the end zone, he goes, "Super duper big play," and it was fantastic, man. I implore you people to go out there and watch it and find it if you can. Tommy B, any chance we overlook Purdue and miss out on the college football playoff? That's a fair question. I think Michigan's in either way, because you know what? If you're 12-1, go into Columbus and win. I don't think that you're not going to put Ohio State in over them, right? I think that would be, there you go, 10 times minimum. Lots, exactly, guys. You're not going to put Ohio State in over them, and there's going to be like maybe four one-loss teams, and Michigan would still be one of them. Now it matters for seeding more than anything. And when you get here, no, Tommy, to answer your question, they will not overlook them, because this team it's not in their DNA to look past somebody. What concerns me is you come off that emotional win, you're banged up, man. I don't think there's any way. This is a strong opinion that Blake Corum plays in this game. Hopefully, he'll be back for the playoff on New Year's Eve. Mike Morris, who knows, right? Luke Schoonmaker barely played. You know why? Which is why he had Colston Loveland out there. That's the good thing is that Jim Harbaugh has his program now where the depth is so good, just like
Mhm.
Ohio State. That Diamante Trayanum guy, by the way, that running back, their fourth stringer, is a
Mhm.
good back. I thought he had a
Mhm.
great game when he was carrying people. Michigan recruited him out of
Yeah,
Arizona State to be
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah. And
roles.
here's a newsflash: Ohio State has football players at depth. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So, but you're absolutely right. But I love how JJ said it's a great win, but none of this matters. The job is still not done. Let me tell you a little story about that, William. We were in the post game, and they're putting on their Big Ten East champion hats, and he's talking to Cornelius Johnson on his right, and he's got Donovan Edwards on his left. He goes, "I should we even wear these things?" And
Yeah.
they're
No.
they're
No.
asking their leader
Don't wear
exactly.
them.
They're
Yeah.
asking
No.
JJ. He's like, maybe just for a little bit. He said, but then the first thing he said was, the job's not done yet. They understand that the goal, Skene, is to win a Big Ten championship, and just beating Ohio State doesn't get you there anymore.
No, I'm glad to hear JJ say that, and I
Hmm.
saw a couple of those guys wearing those hats. I'm like, really?
Yeah. Hey.
It brought me back to yeah, the year he talked about, you
Yeah.
know, co-Big Ten East champions. Come on, yeah, get rid of the hats.
I
Let's go
still have your
win a Big Ten
T-shirt.
title. Yeah,
I still have your
thanks.
T-shirt for that. Yeah.
Let's go win a Big Ten title and get the real undisputed standalone title and put your name on the wall there in Schembeckler Hall, along with the other great championship teams over the years. That's what matters, and then we'll see
Hmm.
what happens and where the opponent is next. That is the mission. I'm assuming this team will absolutely understand that. This team's got enough leadership well within it to understand what's at stake in Indianapolis. I don't expect any kind of flat performance. There will be a physical impact, like you talked about, Balas. These guys are still going to be beat up, and they're going to have to find a way to win another game. But it's when there's a trophy on the line, there should be no overlooking anybody.
Yeah, no question. And it is harder, with all due respect to your 5 Big Ten championship rings, to win a Big Ten because of that this year.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? You have to win.
Aiden said that last year. I told you
He
the
did. He
story,
told his
right?
dad. Exactly. He told
And
Chris
you guys didn't have to
Hutchinson.
do this.
Right.
You guys aren't
Exactly.
as good as we are. And Hutch is like, yeah, Aiden, just relax. Yeah, we did it
Right.
5 times.
He's
Okay.
like, just relax with my 5 rings on my fingers. I put them in your face. So, Zach Swank, 999. Zach, thanks so much, brother. I felt roles reversed finally. Last few games, Michigan had bad personal foul penalties when they had a chance for a big stop. There goes OSU for 80. This year was OSU with the personal fouls and us going for 70 in the fourth. Yes. You know what? And again, that changed last year as well. And you could kind of sense it in the pregame where, you know what, Michigan was like, enough of this. You know what, we have got to play our best game. They didn't do that. You guys like Donovan Peoples Jones dropping passes, Zach Gentry 4 or 5 years
Hmm.
ago. He's still in the
Yeah.
pros, by the way. As Marcus Ray once told me, he said, "You need your best players to play their best games in this game, and that's
Yep.
what's most important."
Yep.
And you can't have that. You can't have those missed assignments. You can't have the loaf, like I mentioned earlier, when Cornelius Johnson is going off. You have
No.
got to bring every guy on every play. Yes, again, it's cliche, but that's exactly what it takes. And Zach, I couldn't agree with you more. But it's hard to get that formula back when you lose it, Skeen. And now 2 in a row proves there's nothing flukish about it.
No, and the roles being reversed, and think about the Ohio State Michigan games in the last 10 years. Think of Zeke Elliott and how many long runs he had against us. It's taillights for
Exactly.
that guy, and we're all chasing from behind. And you see those pictures and shops throughout Ohio. You go and you see the all the photographs of the big plays, and yeah, Donovan Edwards taillights, man, and those
Mhm.
pictures will be pasted throughout the Midwest for us Michigan fans, and looking those things with smiles on our faces. So the roles have absolutely reversed now, and it's official. Holy crap! Time in Ohio. What the hell is going on? Time, and of
Yep.
course. Some of my Buckeye friends are already calling Coach Day, Ryan Cooper, and making comments about can't beat Michigan now and everything else. So the sky has fallen in Ohio. The good news is the sun did come up down there. I'm pretty sure there's still air to breathe in Ohio, and things will be okay for my Buckeye friends. Being on the south side of this rivalry for this long, the roles are absolutely reversed, and now it's time for them to reevaluate what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, that air does smell a little worse, and you can kind of taste it at times, but it is still air, and they will still breathe it. So, Andrew Malash, hell yeah, fellas, 3 games to go. Yeah, that's the crazy part, man. 12-game season, and I was going to ask you about this, Skeen. I mean, when you get done with 12 games, it is such a marathon, and at
Hmm.
the end of it, it's almost relief, right? I
Hmm.
mean, you love it, and you don't get to play anymore, but man, your body's banged up. These guys have to play maybe 3 more games. How hard must that be for these guys, even knowing still that carrot's out there where they can win it all?
Yeah, the physical heart is there,
Hmm.
but your adrenaline and the excitement about the level. I mean, it's been playoff football since the Illinois game, right?
Right,
Even
right.
before that. But as you ratchet up and you go toward that big trophy that we're all hoping that Michigan gets to, I think the adrenaline kind of overrides any physical pain you can feel, unless you're so hurt that you can't play, like obviously Corum and Morris in the game there. But there's so much excitement and so much anticipation about these games, and it's like a red letter game times 10 from here on in. So it's just what it is.
Yeah, it is. And when did you guys think we're going to win this game? Well, as an unbiased journalist, when did I think Michigan was going to win this game? I'll tell you when. When they started driving the ball up 24-20, and okay, now the running game's working, and you could just feel the air come out of that balloon, Andrew. Andrew, if you've never been there, and thanks so much, man, for the $20. If you've never been there, you know what, maybe once go down there and you could just feel it, especially now that they're winning again. when things start to go south and you get that feeling like, oh my God, here we go again. I will compare it to the Michigan State night game a few years back when Michigan fans, there was a monsoon and John O'Korn's your quarterback, and
Mhm.
you're thinking, there's no way this is happening. You're turning the ball over and you get the
Mhm.
sense that this is going to happen. That's how it feels down there, only magnified by 10 because these people are crazy. But for me, yeah, it was the first and 35 possession. They almost picked that up, by the way.
Mhm.
But I felt that was the beginning of the end. I was surprised that Ryan Day didn't go for it, especially the way they picked up those two plays, like 25, 27 yards in two plays. I thought he coached a little bit scared in this game, flat out. When he got to midfield, maybe fourth and two, and they didn't make one. They
Mhm.
had a good play, but good on Jalen Harrell, by the way, for making a great play
Mhm.
and sticking right there with that tight end. But that's when I felt it, buddy, when they were marching down the field and JJ McCarthy runs through two linebackers and carries one of them and then gets up and looks at him like, get off me. I was
Mhm.
like, they got a chance here.
Mhm.
What about you?
Yeah, it was about that point in the game, right? And I absolutely think that that decision by Day to go and punt the football to Michigan, I thought, because Stroud was out there like, no, leave me out here. Let's
Hmm.
go for this thing. And Day was like, nah, we're gonna punt this thing. And then as we started grinding out some yardage and getting first downs and those plays again, like you just mentioned, where your quarterback and JJ is pretty big guy, but he's not exactly a massive dude out there, smashing people. So when he starts putting his shoulder down and they can't get him to the ground, and he's standing over, kind of get looking at a guy. Um, it's just like, yeah, these guys have got a swagger. The body language is all
Hmm.
positive, and we're here to kick your butt. And this is happening, Ohio State. This is happening right in front of your friends and your girlfriends and your mom and dad right now. And you're going to be crying your ass off when you leave the field today because we're going to beat your ass.
Yeah.
And that was evident. Like, and certainly by the end of the third quarter, we went up 31, 31-20. Is that what it was? 31-24. I can't
Yes.
remember balance. It's like,
31-20.
pretty much like,
31-20.
here we go. Holy
Yep.
crap. These guys are
Yep.
on a mission. And then the Edwards runs at the end was the knockout blows, right? When you're
Yes.
watching MMA and you see a guy just he's out before he hits the floor.
Yeah.
That was Ohio State, and
Yeah.
it was a thing. It was a thing of beauty, Dallas.
Watching the replay, Joel Klatt says Ohio State needs to stop right now, and boom, he's gone.
Gone.
75 yards. As far as the girlfriend's comments, Mike Leach, Mississippi State coach, now had a great commentary on that. You can't say it anymore. I don't think. I think it's politically incorrect, but you know what? If you're okay with it,
Well,
if you're
Leach said fat girlfriends,
fat
fat
little
ugly
girlfriends, fat
girlfriends.
little
I no,
girlfriends.
I didn't say anything about their physical
No, I
nature or
didn't.
anything like
Exactly. That's
that.
why I just said no.
Just,
You just
your
said girlfriend.
girlfriend's up there, you got your
I said it,
girlfriend, your
not
mom and
you.
dad, your
Right.
sister, everybody's happy, and
Yeah.
they're there to cheer you on, and then you
Yeah.
just get your butt
Go
kicked. It's like
Jimmy. Go
it's
Jimmy.
hey, listen,
Yeah.
I've been on the receiving end of those things, man.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're the one getting your butt kicked and you see the family after the game, it's like, yikes, that kind of
Yeah.
sucked.
Except Tracy, your Tracy was said, just man up and get over it. And you know what? So
Right.
I know she's a competitor. So any impact on recruiting for either team, Howard? I'm going to get to your question in 1 second, but I do want to say this: one of the underrated aspects of that game is those punts that we're talking about that Ryan Day kicked. Two of them go into the end zone on short
Mhm.
kicks where if they're down those at the 1 yard line, and AJ
Mhm.
Henning did a nice job, I thought, getting in the way a couple of times to some of those gunners to prevent that. That's a different ball game if you have to start from your 1 yard line compared to the 20. So I thought those were big plays too. Howard, yes, you know what? Nicholas Harbor and these guys, go to our site at thewolverine.com. Our guys, Zach Libby and EJ Holland, have reactions from recruits around the country that are saying they even picked up a commitment today. You can read about it. They said, I want to be a part of this. Okay. Now, what's ultimately going to matter when it comes to this is NIL and how Michigan does that. But you're seeing NIL ruin programs around the country too if you
Mm.
do it wrong. I will bring up Texas A&M. Tennessee had a loss. They had a sure playoff berth. They go into South Carolina. From what we've heard, there was some kind of commotion about somebody showing off his car, his NIL deal, that caused a stir in that locker room, and they go over and get their ass kicked at South Carolina. So there is a way that you have to finagle this thing. There's a sweet spot. And I think Michigan's still a little behind, but you don't go all in either and say, you don't go all SMU and say, here's $1 billion. You know what? It's for some of you, but not for the other ones of you. So,
We
yeah,
talked about that. That'll absolutely divide a locker room. If
it
someone
will.
is flaunting a super fancy car, and listen, like I said, every man on that team has to do all the running, all the lifting, all the barfing, all the pain, all the sweat, all the training time, and some guys, showing up in a fancy new car and a nice leather jacket and all this money and other it can build resentment, Ballas.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
it's I can imagine how difficult it is because thank God we didn't have to go through it. We'd have killed each other.
Yeah, exactly. So, because you would have gotten a billion, and like some poor like guy like
Yeah, yeah.
Desmond Howard, some poor
Right.
guy like Desmond Howard would have been working at Wendy's or
I
something. I
would have
mean,
got a $3.99 Wendy's gift card, and Desmond would have
yeah.
had, the fancy car. But I just
Hey,
can't even imagine what it's like for these guys. So I think
right?
that's a great point you just
It
brought up.
is. Yeah.
NIL can make it what should be a very close locker room a divided locker room, and that
Yep.
obviously can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Texas A&M with a $25 million roster at 4 and 5 and 7 or whatever they are with a terrible
Yeah.
year. Yikes.
Yeah, we got about 3 minutes left here. Adam Hemingway, what do you believe? Oh, there's a reason for starting 0-5 against OSU. Sure seems like it was Donnie Brown all along. I will not disrespect Don Brown. Thanks for the 4.99. Don Brown was a gentleman with us and was outstanding, and he had some great games here. They figured him out. There's no question, but it was before that, 2016. I think it was criminal. I'll say that. And you know what? It wasn't just the spot. You go back and look at that game. They had guys out there. There are some guys, and I'm not claiming that these officials are crooked, but I do think that there is some inherent bias there. If you own a mortuary in Columbus and you grew up an Ohio State fan, and in your bio it says, how much you loved Ohio State football growing up, then you shouldn't be working this game. It'd be like me or you going out there. You want to do it. You know what? You might even err on the side of caution, trying to. You just recuse yourself. Go back and stick the formaldehyde in the dead bodies or whatever, and watch it on TV. So to me, 2016 was criminal. 2017, I thought it was a great game plan. Okay, they were in that game, but I think there are two things. I think Jim Harbaugh. I'm not going to say he panicked, but I think he overcorrected and got away from his roots a little bit. And you went to
Mhm.
that speed and space crap, and then not only did they figure out Don Brown in this game, but there were signs that they knew the signals, right? And when you know if it's run or pass before the play and there are tells there, you are putting your kids at an inherent disadvantage. I will not blame it all on him, but I certainly think that was a big factor.
Well, the other thing that Jim did is you just kind of touched on it there. Get back to his roots. Michigan's had some fine players over those years, put all kinds of guys in the NFL, but there wasn't the depth that we have now. Clearly, we didn't have the quarterback play that we have now. That's an enormous difference. But it oftentimes comes back. If you don't have a really good quarterback and you don't have a defensive line that can cause problems, you have very little chance of winning in college football. And Michigan obviously has a threat on both sides now for a couple of years in a row. And so there's a huge difference makers. But Jim struggled to find a true performing quarterback for his first 5 years. And so those things obviously complicated things pretty heavily. So the recruiting over the course of time, I think that without, describing it in other ways, finding football players first, Ballas.
Mhm.
You and I talked about the shorts and t-shirt tour is fine, and they use it for the measurables and all that jazz. You go to the combine, you watch guys run around, and they look good in their shorts and t-shirts, great. But you got to watch the film, and you got to look for dudes that are willing to put their nose through your chest and run out the other side that love football. And Jim has talked about that openly in the last couple of years. Football players first on this football team, and you combine that with some elevated talent at some key positions, and that's why the performance is different.
Exactly. Mike Sainer still being one of those guys, man. What a football player he is. So,
Mhm.
one last point I wanted to make, guys, before we wrap it up. You talked about the lack of pass rush. I said before the game, I said it doesn't necessarily mean you need an Aiden Hutchinson or a David Ojabo. You need to confuse him a little bit too. And I thought Notre Dame did that. They didn't get a whole lot of pressure in that first game. They held them to 21 points. But I thought some of the calls that Minter made, the one where McGregor jumped the route, you know what? They knew that little pass was coming. He
Mhm.
jumps the lane, the passing lane. Fantastic game plan. So kudos to Jesse Minter as well. Let's hope they keep these guys together. I cannot thank you guys enough. I can't believe how much you guys donated to us and the super chats. You guys are very much appreciated. He's Doug Skene. He literally is the best in the business at this. You could be on the Big Ten Network like Jake Butt or something like that. I'm telling you.
Jake's doing a
So
good job. I
he's doing a
watch him on the
great
Big Ten.
job.
He's doing a good
He's
job out
yeah,
there.
and Josh Perry too. I got to give him
Yep.
credit. Those guys do great work. You could do that too if you weren't such a great damn salesman. So
Well,
anyway,
hey, I like what I do, and I got to
you
work
do.
on my golf game, Ballas. I got to
I know
work on
you
that
do.
handicap.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
got stuff I got to do, man.
Yeah, you do. And he's pretty damn good as it is. So thanks, folks. Can't wait to do this next week after the Big Ten championship game. Appreciate you being with us. Please give us a like if you don't mind. And we will talk to you next week.
Go blue.